So here we are. Most of the big name free agents are signed. What we're left with is a new Canucks team? Not exactly. But there's been some additions. And I'm going to go out there on a limb and say that the Canucks improve. The funny thing is, so TSN said, we don't see the point of the Canucks going from 29th to 23rd, insinuating that with the changes they've made, that the team will move up a few spots but still not be a playoff team. Who won the draft lottery this year? Who won the draft lottery last year? Clearly, finishing at the bottom of the league doesn't get you a top draft pick, so you might as well get yourself a competitive roster, even if it's not a playoff roster. TSN dropped the ball on this one just a little bit, but it's standard thinking, and I see it a lot. Like, well, why is this team not just tanking? Did it help Colorado? Did it help Vancouver? No. Top draft picks were Jersey, Philly, Dallas. None of them tanked. So you might as well suck it up and get better. Because when it comes to the draft lottery, it's more of a lottery now than ever. We need to stop thinking about this. You need to finish 30th and get the number one draft pick. That doesn't happen anymore. That assurance is gone. So there's no point in the Canucks icing an AHL roster next year. And the fact, too, that they have to sell season tickets enters into it. So as much as we want to say, oh, the Aquilinis are stupid. No, the Aquilinis understand that for them to make money, they need to have a team on the ice. It has to be a competitive team. It doesn't have to be a playoff team, but it has to look competitive. It has to at least look like they're capable. And for me, this roster is capable of doing something. I'm going to explain why. So, using cap friendly, okay, this is how I map out the Canucks lineup right now. And you can put in Magna over Burmistrov. You can put Dorsett in ahead of Rodin. You could argue Boucher's better than Gauntz. It's fine. I'm just trying to figure out like a fourth line. I think Burmistrov beats out Magna. I think Rodin and Dorsett. It depends who you're playing against. If you need a tough guy, Dorsett's in the lineup. If you don't need a tough guy, Rodin's in the lineup. Gauntz if you want tough checking. Or at least the heart. The heart is there with Brendan Gauntz. And if you want a little bit extra goal scoring for your bottom six, you put Boucher in there. I think Boucher's still got capability in that way. And I'll also say that I could see Boucher being a waiver wire loss, sort of an Emerson Edom, as what Edom was for the Canucks. So first line, you got the Sedins and Granlund. So Granlund's naturally a center, but Granlund had really good chemistry with the Sedins. I saw it against the Bruins. They had 2 goals in the first period. Granlund knows where to stand. Granlund's a good goal suck. That's what the Canucks have needed since, Anson Carter knew how to do it. Burrows knew how to do it. Just be a goal suck. Just get to where they're going to put the puck, tap it in, and you're good. So second line, that leaves Berchi, Horvat, and I'm going ahead and saying that Sam Gagner, for the money they're paying him, that he's on the second line. And he's interchangeable with Besser. So your second line is Berchi, Horvat, and either Gagner or Besser. Gagner is playing your power play. So your power play is likely going to be the Sedins and Gagner. I'm not impressed with the Sedins still being on the power play, but with the money you're paying them and the fact that there just aren't enough really solid power play options, Gagner gets thrown on that line. Gagner and his power play ability is a big part of the reason why the Canucks went and got him today, because their power play was atrocious this season. So your third line now is the overpaid Louis Eriksson, the overpaid Brandon Sutter, and Besser, or Gagner. If Gagner drops down to this line and Besser qualifies for the second, you have probably, and you guys can go check, but I think that would be the most expensive third line in hockey. 4.75 million, 6 million, and another 3.5 million there. That's an expensive third line. Eriksson was a complete disaster his first year. Playing sheltered minutes on the third line could help him. Sutter is, yes, he's overpaid, but he's a very good third line center. It's just that when they brought him in, they touted he'd be a second line center. It's just not his cup of tea. And then if you have Besser on the Horvat line, that becomes a dynamic potential first line. Berchi, Horvat, Besser could be the first line this year. Gagner on the third line with Sutter and Eriksson. You have a very dangerous third line. You have a third line that can hurt you offensively. If Eriksson can score 15 goals this year, and that's just a modest improvement from the 11 he scored this past season. If he can score 15 in the next season, Gagne scores, say, 15, Sutter's capable of 15 to 20, that's a third line that scored you 45 goals. No, 55 goals. That's pretty good. The Sedin line, I would project out Daniel 20 goals, Henrik 8 to 10, Granlund probably 20. Guess what? That third line is just as good at scoring goals as the first line. So yeah, that first line probably drops to second. Berchi's probably a 20 goal scorer, maybe 15. Horvat should get 25. And again, Besser as a rookie, probably 25. I would think the Canucks will roll those three lines. And then your fourth line, again, these are interchangeable. It's a line that scores about 15 goals for the season. But if they can get 150 goals from their forwards, or 160, and they can get another 20 from this blue line, they're about even to where they were last year. But I think the potential for this team to score more is there. Now on the blue line, you got Edler, who shouldn't be a number one defenseman. You've got Tanev. I got Tanev up here. It could be Goodbranson up here. You got Del Zotto and Goodbranson. And I'm not worried about who plays on what side. So before you say anything, I just went, well, the top four should be Edler, Tanev, Zotto, Goodbranson. And then Hutton and Stetcher become your third pairing. Hugh Levy doesn't bump any of these guys out. So are the Canucks... I know they've said if they move Tanev, they need a defenseman back. I don't think they do. I don't think with the Del Zotto ad, I don't think they do need to add a defenseman if they trade out Tanev. So maybe bringing in Del Zotto means Tanev moves, but what do you get back? So here's the trick for the Canucks. This is not a lineup good enough to make the playoffs. I'm going to say that right now. If anybody thinks, oh, this is a Canucks fan who's out of his mind. No, this team doesn't make the playoffs. It's competitive. Maybe it's in the mix for a wild card up until the deadline and then falls off. But if the Canucks trade out, say, Tanev, they almost have to get a forward back, and then they'd have to trade a forward to get one back. So Tanev has to be part of a package deal now. Because otherwise, you risk having to waive a couple of guys and get absolutely nothing back for them. Bump guys who don't belong on the fourth line down to the third line, or down to the fourth line. They're not going to trade for a goaltender now. Markstrom and Nilsson are going to be the goalies. Unless they get an offer for Markstrom that they can't refuse. Markstrom's on a 3-year deal that's almost cap friendly. But at the money they're paying him, somebody would have to say he's our starter. And I don't see a team in the NHL that's willing to do that right now. So here's the trick. I see that Benning is trying to do something good. Okay? And I'm gonna go ahead and figure it out this way. The Sedins were here when he got here, so the Sedins are not his issue at all. I don't qualify the Sedins as being a problem for Benning because they were here when he got here. Granlund is a check because he got Granlund for Shinkarik. At the time, Canucks fans lost their mind. He's been good. Horvat was here when he got here, so I'm not going to give him a mark for that. Berchi's been a solid ad. I don't see Berchi as a top 6 forward on a good team. But where the Canucks are right now, yeah. Gagne, I'm going to give him a check. I think it's a good addition. He said in the press conference, Gagne plays all 3 forward positions. That tells me he's already got Gagne slotted in on the wing. That's why I got Gagne on the wing. There's going to be comments underneath. Gagne's a center. Sutter's too much money. But good third line forward. Besser, fantastic draft pick. Eriksson, this is a big thumbs down to Eriksson. That was, and I said last summer I didn't like the Eriksson move. Eriksson, if they can get rid of Eriksson, it's a win. Gauntz was here when he got here. I can't give him credit for that. Burmistrov, I think, is a good signing for fourth line. They bring Rodin back. I can't argue with that. Rodin only played 3 games. He was hurt most of the year. They pay almost nothing to bring him back. It's worth it. Dorsett, I'm not a fan of Dorsett. But I'll just put Dorsett as a question mark because we don't know whether he's going to be healthy, how much he'll play, which Dorsett we're getting. Megna, I'm not a fan of Megna. I don't know why we brought him back. I thought he was going to go in expansion when they re-signed him, and then I realized there were other better players, and I just didn't understand what they were doing. Boucher, I think Boucher's still a question mark because we still don't know whether we've got the player who's got that offensive potential, or if we got the guy who's been waived a bunch of times and could get waived and end up back in New Jersey again. On the blue line, Edler's not his fault, and not trading out Edler isn't his fault. He's got too high of a cap hit, and he doesn't play worth that cap hit, and you can't just give Edler away. There's been some Canuck fans like, just give him away. You can't. He's a top 4 defenseman in the NHL. He's paid more and played more than he should be, but he's still a top 4 defenseman. You don't just throw him out. Tanev, fantastic player. I love Tanev. I don't even care if it's him that signed him or Gillis. I just love Tanev. Del Zotto is a check mark for me because I like Del Zotto. I know there's a lot of people who don't, but again, I'm not projecting the Canucks are going to make the playoffs. And I don't think Benning is either. I'm just saying this is a veteran ad to help the team. Goodbranson turns out to be a check mark. There's a popular video of mine where I reacted to the McCann trade, and I was upset because Jared McCann was gone. I thought McCann had potential. I was wrong. McCann had the potential to go to the American League, and I have no faith in him ever becoming anything in Florida. So Goodbranson's a check mark. Ben Hutton was a fantastic move. Troy Stetcher's fantastic. Weirkoch, notice he's number 7. So when people say, Weirkoch is garbage. He's number 7 and Biega's number 8. And I'm glad he's back next year because Biega works as a utility guy. If they need him to fill in up front, they can. Like if Dorsett's still hurt and Rodin sucks, Biega can slot in the number 4 right wing position. It's not the end of the world. And Ulevi's still out here. And the fact that Ulevi doesn't make the team automatically, that's huge. That's huge. Markstrom. Markstrom wasn't. Markstrom was a was a Gillis deal, so I can't give him a mark on that one. I love the Nilsson signing, and I'm glad Bachman's back next year. So, how many check marks am I giving Benning? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So that's 17 check marks for Jim Benning. For players he's brought in that are part of a rebuild, that I agree with being here, that I think are decent players, and weren't mistakes. How many minuses do I give him? I give him, so that's 17 plus, 2 minus, so he comes out with a score of 15. And before you ask, no, I don't intend to do this for every team. Because we were going to do that for every GM. No. Just no. Unless I do decide to do it, in which case I will. But Benning has done such a decent job at making this work as a rebuild. Yes, he's left it so there's no room for a prospect in the lineup this year. Which prospect, other than you, Levy, is pushing for a job in Vancouver? Because I've still got Besser in the lineup. There's still room for Besser. There's nobody. And you're going to mention, Canuck fans always mention guys like Grenier and whoever else, and it's like, no. Let me take a look down the Canucks list here. I don't have Chaput in the lineup because I don't think Chaput stays. I think Chaput's just going to go. And if he stays, I think he's going to end up in the minors. I don't have Molino in the lineup. You know why? Because for me, Molino, I think he goes to the American Hockey League. I just don't see him on the Canucks roster. And I've got all the defensemen there that are listed. Let's go look at the non-roster. Dahlin, I don't think is ready. Dahlin's only 19. Dahlin goes back to Sweden this year. Virtanen, I don't have him on the roster. You could put Virtanen in ahead of Rodin, but look, it's clear the Canucks are not seeing Virtanen as a top 6 forward. Because you can project out a team without Virtanen, and he's still... Virtanen's a bust. It's over. The Canucks are basically saying, yeah, no, we're done. Philip Holmes signed to a contract, but Holm I don't have in this lineup. Goldobin. I don't have Goldobin in the lineup either. And I'm sure at this point, Canucks fans are like, wait, you don't have so-and-so in the lineup. No, Goldobin doesn't make this lineup. And I really honestly think that Goldobin was not ready. And I think he showed it with the Canucks. He's not ready for regular duty. Subban is probably never going to play for the Canucks. Jordan Subban's 22, and he hasn't had a game yet. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he never plays for the Canucks. Andre Padan, not better than Biega. Padan's just big. And he's 23, and he's not... He's not a guy that you look at and say, oh yeah, he's going to be there for the long term. and then anybody else is just sort of there. So I don't see anything in the Canucks lineup here that gets challenged by anything from the minors, other than Virtanen. So is Virtanen, and I'm just going to do this scribbly because I don't know. Virtanen? Because Canuck fans are like, where's Virtanen? He's right over here. In no man's land. Who knows? Where's that home kid we signed? Playing in the American League. Who knows what's going to happen with him? There's depth. There's depth in Vancouver now. Whether it's good depth or not, we can debate. And I would be fine with people saying, well, it's not good depth. I'd be fine with that. But you've got players that can shield the prospects. Let them develop in the AHL. Let them go back to juniors. Don't rush guys to the NHL. How did that work out for the Edmonton Oilers? How'd that work out for Columbus when Columbus was just rushing every guy that they drafted? Oh, he was a top draft pick. We got to give him the lineup. Didn't work out well for Brule. Didn't work out well for Filatov. You draft these guys and it's great. Make them earn their shot in the NHL. Don't just hand it to them. Because when you're handing guys roster spots and you're not bringing in veterans who can challenge them for those roster spots, you're hurting the development of your prospects and your young players, and you're really not helping your team. So what Jim Benning did today and what Jim Benning's been doing the last couple of years has helped the Canucks for the long term. The short term, he could end up fired at the end of this year. I could see the Canucks missing the playoffs and ownership firing him. But I think the Aquilinis need to pay attention to the chart and pay attention to the things that he's been doing that have been the right moves. And don't criticize him for the moves that weren't his fault, like the Sedins being brought back. When the Sedins were brought back, I genuinely was kind of disappointed. I accepted it, but I was kind of disappointed. I honestly thought the last time their contracts were up, I was like, you know what? The Canucks need to move on from the Sedins and find a new core. And then they brought him back. So they're brought back, it's fine. But this is their last year, and then next year we start looking at this lineup completely differently. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I apologize this is longer than my regular videos, but it does feel like it has to be, because I'm projecting out the entire roster and explaining why certain guys aren't in there. So let me know what you guys think. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And I love July. I love free agent season. It's fantastic. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.